A warm welcome to everyone that is joining us right now. Happy spring afternoon. I hope you guys are having a lovely afternoon or lunch break. Welcome to our second segment of the SEW webinar week. The SEW is a Student Entrepreneurship Week, and basically what it is for us to start is just a week that is hosted by the LaunchLab, but is part of the university's initiative to stir entrepreneurship on campus. What we're doing is hosting a three series of webinars to encourage students and illuminate the world of entrepreneurship and let them know that this is also a lucrative and viable option for career taking, and one that they can also create socioeconomic impact while making a sustainable living for themselves. This week we are focusing, or today we are focusing on the AgriScience context, and I'll just dive straight into introducing all of us. But firstly, my name is Mukama Asimwe. I am a student at Stellenbosch University doing my master's in engineering, but also I intern for the LaunchLab, and I am hosting the SEW week. I'm just giving a few seconds for everyone else that's joining. But in the meantime, I'll just ask our panelists to obviously unmute themselves and video themselves as well, so we can have a good look. Welcome to everyone. Welcome Antoine, Josh, Albert, and Maricel. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves so they can tell us who they are, what they do, and obviously why they're relevant for this conversation for entrepreneurship in the AgriScience context. So I'll start off with Josh. Josh, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Hey, thanks, Martha. It's great to be here today, everyone. Sorry if it's a little loud here. I'm in Cape Town for some meetings today. Yeah, really excited about Student Entrepreneurism Week. I'm the CEO of Stellenbosch University LaunchLab, and we really want to be bringing more of what we call inspire to the student body. So we really think of the entrepreneurial journey as inspire, build, grow, and support. We talked to a lot of you, and we heard that people don't really know where to start the entrepreneurial journey. They don't really know where to go in order just to get going and to be inspired. So that's what we're here to do today, is just to talk to awesome entrepreneurs, to talk to people across the faculty, to give all of you a little bit more insight on how to get started. And then once you get started, where to go. And then once you're on the journey, knowing that you have a community around you that will be supportive and help lead along in that process. So yeah, very excited to be here today, and want to really thank AgriSciences, because AgriSciences, I think, has been our most early adopter. They've been the ones that have really said, we want to be innovative, we want to be entrepreneurial. Maricel, Albert, Dean Brink, Kennedy have been awesome. So really want to thank everyone from AgriSciences for really grabbing this and running with it.
Great, thanks, Josh. Albert, if you'd love to tell us who you are and where you're from.
Thank you, Martha. So I'm Albert Strever, and I'm the coordinator of the Agro Innovation Hub. So we have a committee and also an executive committee that functions between LaunchLab, Innovis, and the AgriScience faculty. And my goal is to drive the coordination of the actions related to innovation, entrepreneurship, etc., in the faculty. My background is the wine industry, so I did my PhD, and I also lecture in the wine industry, so actually viticulture, so the grapevine. And I still do that, but my side job is working for the wine industry also to advance product services and different data platforms also for the wine industry.
Thank you so much, Albert. And Maricel?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maricel Krugel. I've been at the university for 4 years now, and I am the lecturer responsible for new product development at the Food Science Department. We have had a lot of groups over the last 4 years, and we've developed over 25 different products, all of them very unique. And we do a lot of research projects as well. So I'm very excited to be here, and I love innovation and pushing boundaries. So very excited about today. Thank you.
Sure thing. Antoine, if you'd like to tell us about yourself as well. Thanks.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Antoine van Heerden. I'm the founder of ButtaNutt. Yeah, ButtaNutt is in its 7th year now. Started in Stellenbosch as a farmers market product, and has grown since then. And yeah, we're based in Paarl now. We've got our own factory here where we produce our nut butters and we produce our nut milks. And yeah, we've got about 20 people in our factory. But yeah, that's us.
Okay, awesome. I'll just give a quick orientation to this webinar. So firstly, we've structured this as a conversation. So the panelists, that is Antoine, Josh, and Maricel, as well as Albert, will be having a conversation on entrepreneurship in the AgriScience context. We hope that there's obviously a lot of insight that you guys will be able to get and draw from them. But while they are busy chatting, or while this conversation is going, we have the Q&A forum. Please post any questions you have on there. Please post any things that come up, any comments or anything that you'd love them to speak about. We will take on questions close to the end. We'll have quite a bit of time for question and answer. So post your questions on there. We've also enabled the upvoting functionality. So if someone does post a question that you think is relevant to yourself, would like to encourage you to please upvote it. So questions with the biggest upvotes, we will obviously take on more urgently than others. So let us know if you guys are able to hear us, if anything is correct that you can do in the chat. But other than that, I'll just start off by just throwing a question or spanner in the works. I think for most of us, obviously being students, we hear about entrepreneurship and it's a big hoo-ha. It's just like start a company and there's all these variables to it, but we don't even know where to start because we're very academically minded, or that's what we think we're doing in university. So I just want to throw it out there. Starting with maybe Albert and Maricel, if you can tell us, what do you think entrepreneurship is? Because you're in the more academic space. What is it? What does it mean for SU students? And what is the university doing about it to start with?
You know, Martha, if you Google entrepreneurship, you'll get quite a few answers. I like the Wikipedia definition because it at least assimilates some of it, but it says it's a capacity and willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture, also taking the risk. And this relates to agriculture because, you know, farmers are used to, if you produce, if you have to, you know, work with nature, you're used to working with risk. So there are quite a few similarities between farming or producing produce and entrepreneurship, because you need to work with risk. And then the reward is also interesting because, and I want to downright say to students as well, you don't always work for entrepreneurship because you want the reward. And the reward is not always monetary. Sometimes in the farming industry, it's the lifestyle or the friendships that you build in the farming communities as well. So definitely I'm still in this business, and I'm still lecturing and teaching, and also in the wine industry because of the networks, the friendships that we build, etc. So Edison used to say that I didn't know, I have not failed, but I found 10,000 ways that don't work. So that's the other comment. In agriculture, sometimes you try, you plant, I mean, you have animals and they die and there's problems and diseases. You try and fail and try and fail, and that's the only way you learn. And I think entrepreneurship is not much different from that.
To add on, I definitely agree with Albert on that. And I think from a food science perspective, it is important for an entrepreneur, for me, to add value to especially the consumer. Food products, eventually, you know, the consumer will buy. So you need to speak to their need, which means to me, you have to add value to their lives. We're all so busy, and especially from a mom's point of view, you know, there's so many things happening in everyone's life. So for entrepreneurs, to me, you have to make someone's life easier from my perspective, and also to open up new job opportunities for people. I mean, in South Africa, there is so many people that do not have jobs. And I think that would, you know, that's also an important point from an entrepreneurship for me.
Josh and Antoine, please feel free to jump in, interject, give some thoughts as well. Yeah.
I have many views here, so I want to hold off. But I think one of the things I want to stress to students is that being an entrepreneur doesn't mean you have to start a business. So a lot of the things that we're working on, whether it's design thinking, whether it's the entrepreneurial mentality, I would say that a lot of these things are better ways to deal with ambiguity, to deal with uncertainty, and to deal with volatility, because that's kind of what startups are. But I think if I asked any of you, how's the job market looking? How is life looking coming out of the pandemic? It's probably uncertain, ambiguous, and volatile, right? So I would think of entrepreneurism as a way to grow grit, to grow your growth mindset, to have techniques to make better decisions in an ambiguous environment. And I'm going to let you in on a little bit of secret as a guy with some gray hair here. Like, life is crazy. Life is ambiguous. So how can we empower you with some of the techniques, some of the inspirational webinars, some things that can help you in your life, even if you're not starting a business? It's going to make you a better husband, father, son, daughter. So that's really what these inspirational events are about. And then coming out and working with us. Learn design thinking, learn about failing fast, learn about, as Albert said, failing 10,000 times, but giving it a go on the 10,001. I think those are things that even if you're not starting a business are just hypercritical to living a good life.
Just to build on that, obviously now there's two things sort of coming out. There's starting your business or just developing an entrepreneur sort of thinking. I think for a lot of us, there's been just a gap in having to know where do we even begin or what is actually available. And I think that builds into my next question, which is, what is the university doing about it to sort of bridge that gap for us? And where do we go? Where do we start? Maybe Josh will tell us more about LaunchLab and what that means for us. But then and Antoine, you can tell us about your experience transitioning from a student to a founder. But just, I think I want to start with Albert and Maricel and just ask, what is the university doing to sort of bridge this gap between our academic sort of thinking and then into entrepreneurial thinking, or even just starting a business? Do you think the university supports this?
I think a lot is being said about universities developing solutions without problems to address, and that is a problem, especially in agriculture, which is very, very much applied to industries. So firstly, to close this gap, I think the university has done quite a lot. In my department and my faculty specifically, which is as diverse as Maricel being at food science, we've got conservation, ecology, 9 different departments. That's quite diverse, and each one of them have their industry partnerships. And through internships, through connections with these industries, we're definitely promoting entrepreneurship, because our connection to the industry is getting closer and closer. And I think that's key. Mentorship, my experience with LaunchLab, with Innovis, really driving this idea of mentoring students, mentoring even the teachers, the lecturers that have to teach students to think more about entrepreneurship, to think more about innovation, and to bring industry as it was, to bring industry into the classroom as well. So I think that gap needs to be closed, and many universities are really focusing, and as this university, we're also placing a huge focus now on that, and I think having some successes down the road.
If I can add on that, from personal experience with the subject that I teach, I really try and connect the students, which is the new employees for these food industries in the future. I really try and connect them with different industries in terms of brainstorming sessions through our whole development process, as well as having huge prizes at the end of the year, which all is being sponsored by different different factories or different businesses within the food industry, and they all see the value. So I would really, and I know there are a few other, lecturers at the university that really go out and use the different mindsets, the different ways that different industries do stuff, and try and implement that in their everyday teaching. And I think if we can have that culture throughout the university from the beginning, you know, we will slowly but surely also change the mindsets of students from this highly academic exercise to why are we doing it, and you know, what can we do more in terms of culturing this whole entrepreneurship mindset in students. And then the other thing is also, I think it's very important to have this relationship with Innovis and the LaunchLab, which we at Food Science also have, and I think they are vital in this entire process.
So Josh, if I could throw this at you then, what is then, because you're speaking about Innovis, LaunchLab and all of that. So what is LaunchLab and what does that mean for AgriScience students coming in with either ideas or just looking for mentorship or whatever? Yeah.
Sure. So what we did at LaunchLab was we talked to all of you, we talked to a ton of people and said, okay, what can this thing look like? And what we heard was, I think what Martha was saying, I don't know where to start. Once I get started, I don't know where to go. After I listen to the webinar today, what do I do next? And so what we've done is really build out an entrepreneurial journey. And it's not linear. People can come in and out of this thing, but we have inspire, build, grow, and support. So today is inspirational. Today is a webinar talking about how these things work, getting great people out there, getting a great entrepreneur out here, showing his success story and making you see it is possible. So we want you to be inspired today. The next thing though is, okay, what do I do next? And I always say, in order to be an entrepreneur, you can't read a book, you can't watch a webinar and say you're an entrepreneur. You got to go out and build something. So within Build, we want to be able to do things like short-term events, like student pitch competitions, design thinking workshops, hackathons. We're going to have one of those coming November 27th for AgriSciences. So we are working on a number of things together with AgriSciences and partners that can let you get your hands dirty in a really low risk, quick way. We also have our Countdown program. So Countdown is an 8-week design thinking course that answers the question, I have an idea, but is it a business? We have 2 teams from AgriSciences right now in our Countdown course. Maricel will be putting one of her teams in Countdown in February 2021. So this is something we're going to start promoting a lot more and getting more student involvement in really going through an 8-week course with the cohorts. That cohort also has engineering, it has chemistry, it has all this cool stuff that you're going to get to work with other entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds. We then have what we call Grow is our Supernova program. Supernova is focused on climate, agri, and health. It's a 1-year incubator for companies. So you have a company, you have a product, you have a little bit of revenue, and it's time to get going. It's time to really build that thing. And we're going to work as your co-founder with you for a full year. And then lastly, there's a community. So we support. You can come and get a hot desk at LaunchLab. You could come and just work out of LaunchLab. You can be part of our virtual community and get access to our online events and webinars. But I would point everyone to our website. We have our new brand. We have our new website. It's launchlab.coza, and hopefully everything that you need to know about Inspire, Build is on that website. If it's not clear, definitely email us and ask. And then hopefully you'll know after today's inspirational webinar, what's next? Like, what can I do next to really get going as an entrepreneur?
Great, thanks, Josh. Just want to remind everyone, if you've got any questions, please put them in the question and answer. Upvote if you think a question is relevant to you or you wanted to ask something in the same vein. And we're going to post our LaunchLab's all social media accounts so you're able to follow and see what we're up to, what we're doing, and also what's relevant for students with ideas of trying to get into entrepreneurship. I just want to quickly jump to Antoine, because I think you have a very interesting case for us to sort of observe. Students, I think you have a good example for us. So I want to ask you, just give us a brief of your entrepreneur journey. What was it like? What were the handles? What are the things you've learned? Who were you in touch with? Who helped you along your way? And just generally, how has it been? Yeah.
Sure, I'll try and give you a quick summary of the past 2 years. But I guess I need to start with my parents both are very entrepreneurial at spirit. So I did grow up with my mom and dad having their own businesses, it was kind of something I was really interested to do, to get going. Not knowing, what I would, like you said, get my hands dirty with. I was a student at the time. My parents, when I came to study, my parents started farming in Mpumalanga with macadamias, and yeah, I bought some macadamia butter there at a local farm stall, and started, yeah, I really loved it. Couldn't find it anywhere. Sold some of my parents' nuts and made my own. Yeah, and people loved it just as much as I did, and yeah, encouraged me to start selling it. So yeah, I started selling it at the farmers market in Stellenbosch. Met my business partner at the time that helped a lot with the funding, which is I think a critical point. Obviously, if you don't have your own money, like most students are, someone that can help you, that believes in your business, believes in your ideas is critical. And yeah, I also met Brandon at the LaunchLab, and we were there for about 2 years. Josh talked about the community that, yeah, and that just whole entrepreneurial. You just walk into the LaunchLab and you kind of smell the entrepreneurship in the air. It's really something. And yeah, I guess we also later on got a big food company to invest in us. Pioneer Foods bought 30%. Yeah, so that also really helped us to scale up our business and kind of take it to the next level. But yeah, the path is difficult. It's been a rocky road, lots of ups and downs. But yeah, it is lovely. It is fantastic, working for yourself and kind of controlling your own destiny. And that said, I've never worked for someone else, so I actually don't know what the other side is like. But yeah, I mean, here we are 7 years later, still growing, still showing very positive signs and opportunities. And like I said earlier, we've got a team that's we all work together, and that's really encouraging. And yeah, it's really great to have I guess just invest in people and see how they progress, and how essential that is to growing your business as well. At some point, you just can't do everything yourself, so you have to start relying on third parties and on other people to help you. To help you grow your business and kind of your destiny, you're reliant on other people as well.
Oh. Something that's very interesting that you've mentioned or you highlighted quite a bit was the issue of capital, or just having someone that believes in your partners coming in that support you alongside your business. And I want to sort of jump on that and throw the question out there, because I'm seeing questions come in from the students asking about just capital and starting points. So I think someone asked about farming, and if they have no experience or capital or land, or just anyone having an idea and they don't have the investment already in there to help them grow that idea. Just to everyone out there, and this can be a conversational point, where do you advise students to start? What opportunities are out there that are available, or resources that are out there that are available for them that can help them get off the ground in terms of capital or investment or land resources? Yeah, anyone's welcome to start.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, I think the LaunchLab is a great starting point. Like Josh said, you can rent a hard desk there. Even if you don't really have a business idea, you could kind of hang out there and see what's going on, and help out with. It's a great place to connect. We met our accountant there. Obviously, met our web hosting people there, and so I think that's a great starting point. They also have a lot of social events with investors the time that I was there. But I think that community is very important. So I think that is, from my perspective, the starting point. If you're looking for kind of funding, you need a community first.
Yeah, I'll build a little bit on Antoine there and appreciate the plug. I would say there's two things here. One would be to de-risk it for yourself, make it a very small proposition. What we're doing, and Martha's a great example. Martha wants to be more entrepreneurial. She's working with our team. She's giving us a few hours a week. We're paying her a little bit of money, and she's seeing how a startup works. And it's a very low risk proposition for everyone. I think from Antoine's point, if you're coming to LaunchLab and you want to get connected to one of our companies, we are starting to set up these fellowships and internships. We're starting to be able to create these channels to say, I'm an AgriScience student with a proficiency in X. We're going to our companies and saying, what do you need? And how do we do a little bit of matchmaking there? And it's a very low risk way to get started. For me personally, a couple of the companies I joined, I wasn't a founder. I joined as an early stage employee and got to go try it out that way. So you don't maybe have to worry about the capital. You can be with a company who's already going. And the second part is a concept of bootstrapping. And I don't know, Antoine, how you funded the business early, but you just need to be smart and you need to be scrappy and you need to be able to figure out how to get this thing from 0 to 1 without a ton of money. Like if you think that capital is a constraint, then take it out and figure out how to get there without a huge amount of capital. And we can help you with that. There's techniques to be able to do this in a lean, efficient, effective way. And a lot of them focus on customer discovery. I love what Antoine said there about going and buying some of the macadamia nuts and also working on a farm. Like I think understanding like what insight have you earned that's going to make you able to solve a customer problem? I'm sure Antoine had a lot of experience in these different nuts and farming and the customers and the problems there. So think about that. Like what problem are you uniquely situated to solve? And then come work with us and we'll try to figure out how to get you there. So.
If I might add, just in terms of the farming, I've read something the other day where vertical farming, where they just start small in urban areas. Usually when you think of farming, you think of 8,000 hectares and cows and sheep and you know, it's a different way of thinking with regards to vertical farming. You don't need acres and acres of land. So that's maybe also a small way to start, just to see, is it what you thought it is, and you know, what it entails and what it involves. And another way in the food science arena to start small, and I also know of another guy, I don't know if you know him, Antoine, it's Eric Labuschagne, who started Yummy Foods. He started his own business in the sense while he was studying to make brownies, and he sell at farmer markets, and slowly but surely he built up, you know, a consumer or customers, and then from there on onwards he also got a partner, and then you know he built the business also step by step like Antoine. So you can't always just start with a bang and think you're going to do, you know, another Pick and Pay or something like that, which is yeah, a bit big, I suppose. So to start small is also possibly a way of getting your foot into this. Antoine, I don't know if you agree or disagree.
No, totally agree. And you know, once again on Josh, the low risk, you know, that you can, you know, maybe join someone that's already, you know, we've got some traction, that's already maybe sorted out a bit of the funding. You know, that's I do know Eric, and I a lot of respect for him and what he's achieved. Also based here in Paarl. So yeah, it's good to mention him. I think one thing we've also obviously realized is you'd maybe do a round of funding and then think surely that this is enough, or this is going to be enough, and it turns out it's never enough. I think as an entrepreneur, it's just you're just too ambitious, and you've always got new plans, and how can you grow this or that, or I think the funding is something that that you're always going to kind of have that in the back of your mind. But then also just on the low risk thing, entrepreneurship is obviously high risk. So until you're 100% sure of what you want to do, the low risk option is, of joining someone is I think a brilliant idea. Maybe they see something that they don't see something that you do, and maybe that just gives you an idea of what you want to do in the future. I guess one thing that we deal a lot with is also we get a few interns in to help us with food safety, and we've got a lot of CVs from the university. One thing that obviously students lack is just experience. One thing that they do have is a lot of ambition and drive, which is fantastic, and that's energy. But yeah, there is a lot you can still learn. Obviously, graduating out of university, that you can only pick up, in the hustle and bustle of kind of the real world. And it's maybe not a bad idea to kind of find your feet a bit, and maybe save a bit of money before you kind of put your head into entrepreneurial direction. But then you can also look at it and say, when is the best time to start an entrepreneurial thing? And you maybe want to say the best time is when you are young and you have the least amount of kind of risk. The older you get, the more pressure you get from maybe you marry, or you buy a house, or you've got children. So that's also kind of complicates things. So I guess being young, you have the opportunity to kind of take risks, but that said, it's you also don't know that much yet. So kind of also just want to put that out there.
Yeah. What's very interesting is obviously giving the direction for start small and then build it up later on, or just put yourself out there in a low risk sort of environment where you can learn and have the handles. However, on the flip side, which is a spanner I want to throw in the works now, is there's students who actually have brilliant ideas, but that are capital intensive. So for them, it's, I have a brilliant idea, I've thought of a plan, I have something that I can go off, but I actually need some investment. I need someone to come in and actually come alongside me. And I think with that sort of situation, what would you say are the practical handles, or just sort of practical tips you can give them where they can find some sort of investment, or I don't know, pitch their idea, present it to a few investors? Where can they go for this, or what can they do, either in the context of the university or with LaunchLab specifically? Where would you direct them? Welcome to come here.
Maybe Josh can say about the university, but I just want to make a point about mentorship as well. There was a question in the chat as well on what does an emerging farmer do. For instance, if you want to start a new endeavor, something like Maricel's mentioned, this vertical farming, it can be daunting if you start. Who do you ask? And I think in our faculty, we've got a lot of networks of knowledge, people that are engaged with their industries where they are learning and development. For instance, in wine tech, which I work with a lot in the wine industry, we've got a learning and development initiative in wine tech and in Winpro. They've got a teaching and learning initiative that helps emerging farmers with knowledge and with skills, and also to engage learning or emerging farmers with current farmers that have made a success already, not necessarily in that crop or in that specific industry sector, but that can show how you actually go from A to Z. And I think that's important. We've got the networks. We not only the university is there, but we've got also underlying networks that we can connect you to for extra mentorship and for very practical advice, and also maybe to do an internship to see if you really made out for this type of industry, this type of product, etc.
Yeah, I would echo that with Albert said. I mean, it's a stupid analog, but if you wanted to get into sailing, you wouldn't go buy a yacht. Like, just go out and get a rowboat and start rowing along. Like, just don't let capital stand in the way of doing something. And I would say the more that you're willing to just start small and test it out. Like, that is very entrepreneurial. Just start small, test it out, learn. You can come to LaunchLab. I mean, we're having student pitch competitions. We had one this year. We're going to have this World Wildlife Foundation Challenge at the end of November. There's prize money in these things. There's 60K, 100K here and there. Keaton, who will be on our webinar on Friday, has, I think, put together a pretty decent amount of funding through winning student pitch competitions across US, Europe, and even Asia. So if you have a great idea, come work with us. We'll help you prepare your pitch. We'll help you get ready. Most importantly, we'll help you validate the business idea. So it's great to pitch and it's great to raise money. It's even better to build a business. So I would say come and work with us, but start small and don't let capital get in the way of starting. Just get going. And you're going to, I mean, Antoine, you can probably say, how many times has your business pivoted in the last 7 years? Is your idea today the same as it was 7 years ago? My hypothesis would be, no, it's not. So just get going and you're going to learn a lot of things. And for the last part, I'd say is the biggest thing about a startup is customer discovery. You want to talk to customers. You want to understand their problem. The model of going out there and building a product and then trying like building this thing and then running around trying to find someone to buy it doesn't make any sense. So go out and it's free to talk to users and we'll give you techniques and we'll give you questions and we'll give you ways to go and talk to a user. And when you really understand their problem, then you become very well suited to start building a product that meets their needs. So I want to throw that on its head a little bit. You don't need the money. You need the understanding of a customer problem. That's great.
I fully agree with Josh. I get a lot of emails from people saying, oh, I have this great idea. Can you help me develop it? The first thing I ask them is, for who are you doing it and why? And many a time they just don't come back to me. So either they're not interested to further work with us, or I just really ask them something that they haven't thought about. And that is critical. And we do that with our students as well. We first, speak to consumers, get data from them, and then only they start to develop the product. And I think that's that's important, in my opinion as well.
Yeah, no, I also want to agree with that. Also from my experience being part of the LaunchLab and whatever, I actually came in while trying to develop a product that was a tea product from wine waste, and that's exactly how I landed up in the LaunchLab. And just having to test out that product and see if people will actually buy it, if people are actually interested in the thing that I want to put out there. That was a very, very interesting journey for me. And also just testing the product itself. You can have an idea, but build something, build a minimal viable product that you can see if it's sellable, if people will enjoy it. Because I'm an engineer crossing over into agri-science, but just with that, it helped me just develop my knowledge about the industry and what people actually buy, what they end up taking on, especially if there's a lot of competitors on ground already. But that being said, I want to ask a question that was directed at Dr. Strever about how should one approach the agri-industry with a new product? How do you open up consumers to change? Because I assume people do come up with radical, innovative products, but to get people to actually like those products is a completely different story. So how does one go about that?
Yeah, I think that the agri value chain can be quite complex. I mean, we're thinking just about, you mentioned the wine, but you have the producers and you can have the grapes going to different places. It can be juice, it can be wine, it can be brandy. The value chains of these agricultural sectors, and it could be animal sciences or fruit science or horticulture, could be very complex. The thing is, what we can help you do is to understand where in the value chain do you need to engage. Is this a product processing challenge, which will more be towards the food science department, for instance? Is it a packaging thing that you're solving? Where in the value chain? And this is very crucial, because if you understand the whole value chain, you can unlock the potential of your offering, because you understand the customer better by understanding the producer, the person that must market the agricultural sector. And unfortunately, but also fortunately, the agricultural industry is quite complex. But it offers a lot of opportunity from engineers. And this is, I think, an important point, is if you're an agronomist, go talk to an engineer. I mean, I think, Martha, you came from the engineering side, but you work with food scientists. So or chemical engineers, you need to talk to different disciplines. And we're seeing in agriculture that becoming more and more important. If you study, you're going to maybe have exposure to one discipline, but it's very important in your friend, maybe in your hostel where you talk to friends. Talk to an engineer, talk to an economist, talk to somebody that's on the marketing front, and that will really help to drive your ideas further.
I can maybe just add to that, Albert, thinking about the whole agri-protein, story, where they use black soldier fly larvae. There's engineers, there's meat scientists, there's food scientists, there's a whole array of people, biochemists, I think, of people that has to be involved to make that work. So I really agree with you. You have to cross-pollinate.
I think that's a bit of our vision for LaunchLab is, I mean, as you all know, the university is respectfully a bunch of verticals, right? So there's AgriSciences and there's science and there's engineering. And sometimes either A, you're not incentivized to go across the street and talk to someone, or sometimes you just don't even know how to. At LaunchLab, we're a horizontal. So we get to work with AgriSciences, engineering, data science, USB. I can tell you that you need a business person on your team. You need an ag scientist, you need an engineer, you need a data scientist. Like, everyone can bring something else to the table. Our hope at LaunchLab is that we're pulling people from all across the university. We have over 100 people on this call today. You're our early adopters. You're the people who care enough to spend an hour of your day listening to us talk. The next step now is come and be part of what we're doing at LaunchLab, and hopefully meet the engineer, hopefully meet the business person, or meet the data scientist that can help you move your idea forward. So we want to be that horizontal where everyone can come in a nice community environment and get to work with other people who are going to help move their ideas forward.
Yo, thank you guys so much. So for everyone that's asking how they would love to be part of the LaunchLab community, I just put a few emails for us. They send us an email at info@launchlab.co.za if you want to know about just LaunchLab, what it does or what it has for you, and just how you can get part. But if you're looking for something more student specific in terms of like, what are the pitch competitions, what does LaunchLab have in store for students, then send me an email at martha@launchlab.co.za. Part of the things that we'll also be doing is we're going to start an office hours at the PPS Lounge in the Nilsey from next week, possibly. And what we're going to do with that is we're just going to sit in for 2 hours. If you've got any sort of very specific questions about your how-tos, what do I do in this case, or you've got a plan, you've got an idea, and you just love someone to curate it or to vet it, you're more than welcome to join us. And we'll be sitting in on Wednesdays, I think from 12 to 2. Otherwise, if you also want to know more about information about the office hours, then also send me an email at martha@launchlab.co.za. We're happy to help and happy to answer your questions. The services are there for students. We're letting you know about them so that you have everything you need to start your startup. I'll just ask one more question that's related to funding. I think someone's asking does funding always have to have a catch? Also, in terms of getting funding, in terms of getting capital, how do they secure funding without having to release some of their profits going forward? I think the rumor about when you start a startup with a university, there's a share or intellectual property, those legal constraints come in there. So I think that's gotten around. So if we could maybe explain to students what this actually entails and at what point is the company completely theirs or not? Is it theirs from the beginning? Please let us know. Yeah.
I'll hop in there a little bit. I mean, the first question away from even the university is, if you ever take anyone else's money, there's always a catch. So the only companies in the world that can do whatever they want are the ones that fund themselves. If you have free cash flow, you figure out what you want to do with it. If you take someone else's money, you always have someone else at the table with you. And if you were giving someone else your money, you probably want to stay in how that company was run. So that's just going to build your company. If you can bootstrap, if you can keep it yourself, then great. There are companies that do need external funding. I mean, I've helped raise over 250 million USD in my career for 4 different companies, and that was great. But like, some of that was good, some of that ended up not working out very well. So just keep that in mind. In terms of the university, Innovis is our tech transfer partner. Innovis does an incredible job of really helping you understand your business idea and start to bring it out of the university. So I would say reach out to Nolene, to Yobert, to any of us, and we can connect you with Innovis. The first step is to talk to them and to figure out how this works. They're an incredible partner. They're going to spend a ton of time, money, effort helping you figure out how your idea works, and they'll make a decision. There's situations where, yes, you will need to give the university some, I guess, incentive is whatever you want to call it, in order to get the idea into the publish is very common. Like today, if I started something at LaunchLab, I don't own it for what it's worth. LaunchLab owns it. If I want to start a business out of this material that I built at LaunchLab, I would have to work with LaunchLab to do that myself. But there are circumstances as well where it is your idea. It's not about the university or anything else. But the first step is to talk to Innovis. That can happen because we work very, very close. So hearing a lot about funding, it's important. Don't let funding ever get in the way of starting your idea and really understanding a customer problem.
Great. Albert, did you have something to add on to that?
I agree fully with Josh, and really you are students of the university or even the staff that's on this meeting. The LaunchLab and Innovis is there to support you, and there's really a benefit to this, because if you are going outside to pay the legal fees to set up your company and to really drive your idea further, you know, all the advice that you can also get for free. It's really, in my experience, better to first go the channels inside, and then, of course, when the idea is evaluated and it is seen who's the partners and who will be involved further, then there can be a reassessment. So in my experience, it's always a negotiation. And LaunchLab and Innovis, I've never seen them in one initiative to be sort of looking to steal the money and to get their hands on it. It's really to support and to drive something further and to see execution out in the industries. And that's more my role, is to see that these things roll out and become useful out there in the industries. So this is very important. Feel free to talk to them and use that channels, especially while you're at university and you really can use the services that's offered to you.
Awesome. I have another question for Antoine, and this is asking, what are some of the main challenges that you faced while setting up your company or doing your startup, other than raising capital? What are some of those challenges? And maybe if you could add some of the benefits or even other opportunities that arose through those challenges, you could let us know. Yeah.
I think setting up a company. I studied engineering at Stellenbosch, and I actually didn't have any idea of how to start a company. So from trademark registration, company registration, VAT registration. I guess there's a lot of admin stuff, but you do get companies that can help you with that. Or I think other than funding, the big challenge is kind of making sure that the product that you create really does offer a benefit to your customers and justifies them buying it. We kind of try to create a better for you peanut butter with locally sourced macadamias and almonds, and it's essentially a tree nut spread versus a peanut spread. But the challenge we had is that it's a lot more expensive than peanut butter, and so we fall in a niche category, which does limit our growth. I guess convincing buyers to buy into your idea of listing a product that is twice the price of peanut butter because it's healthy apparently. Is kind of maybe probably one of the hardest things we've had to do is working with retailers. I think Josh earlier also said the customer interaction is critical. So we especially early on did a lot of tastings at farmers markets. We did farmers markets every weekend. We did tastings in retail stores. And that gives you a very good idea of what does your customer want. It's I guess a very simple, practical way. But even today we take customer complaints very seriously because I think we read a stat somewhere that only 14% of people do complain. The other people just never buy your product again. So, if a customer talks to you and says to you, that they think that this is important or this is different, then you must really listen to them. So I hope that somehow answers your question.
Sure, that's very interesting. Conversely, though, there's been a question here about if there are any consequences of startup failing that should be taken into account. So if you can no longer, for example, if you've got an idea and you can no longer deliver the product as you pitched it to investors, is there any sort of things that students should look out for? Obviously, the rule of thumb is drive through, push through, and be successful. But if it doesn't materialize, what happens then?
I'll hop in here, and I think it's coming back to a similar concept of you want to. I mean, you can think of it this way: as soon as you take someone else's money at all, you now are beholden to that person in some way. I mean, even if it's just a moral responsibility to try to get them back their money, or just to continue work. I mean, I worked on a company for 3 years that, frankly, after a year, I didn't want to work on anymore. But I had taken external money, and I needed to try to make that thing work. So what I would say is that the more that you can validate your idea, start getting some traction, start getting what we call product market fit. Really understand your customer, really start building a product, and really start getting those two together before you ever take anyone else's money is really important. So do everything you can to just validate the idea, validate the fact you want to work on it for like 3 or 4 years, and validate that you want to really give it your all, because you can't get into this thing too. Once you take someone else's money, you can't just wake up one day and say, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm done. Like, you have a fiduciary and moral responsibility to make that thing work until they turn the lights off and they pull you kicking and screaming from that thing. So validate as much as you can the idea, the concept. And again, like a journey of 1,000,000 miles starts with a single step. Take a little baby step into this thing. You came to a webinar today, come to a student pitch competition next month, do an internship early next year, join a founding team next year. Like, work your way into this thing. You wouldn't hop in the deep end if you didn't know how to swim. So like, put the little floaty things on and start paddling around a little bit would be my best advice.
Sure. Yeah, okay. Then 2 last questions. What advice do you have to students about pitching their novel idea without it being stolen, or how do they protect their intellectual property, especially within this context where there's new radical ideas coming out with products? How do they protect that in a pitch setting or with investor settings? Yeah. It is open-ended, so anyone's welcome to shoot.
Well, maybe I can say that, again, the route taken, I've advised students before to talk to Innovis, for instance, and to fill in a disclosure form, to formalize your idea, put it on paper, even before doing a pitching session. I've heard about students, or not students, but external people, 5 minutes before a pitching session, they quickly send a disclosure to somebody just to get it formalized. And of course, nobody signed it yet, but it's on paper and at least it's disclosed. So I think that's important. Talk to someone internally and in this case, Innovis and LaunchLab, to a great degree, they are committed to protect also your ideas and your disclosure if it is disclosed. So to do something formal in a pitching session, I mean, if your idea is stolen, then you've done probably a very thorough and good pitch. So maybe you should keep some secrets for yourself if there are secrets to keep, but it's always a risk. I think it's difficult, but if you can disclose your idea to somebody that you trust, and this is why I think the university have these networks as well, to talk to somebody that you can trust.
I would just, from the food science perspective, also say, I mean, if you look at any label, any food product, the ingredients list are there. So, if you're familiar with the food science environment, it's not that difficult to mimic, other products. Obviously, it depends on what processing aids you need in terms of machines and equipment. So, it's so difficult for food products. You don't really have IP, but it's more of a trade recipe, trade secret, like Coke. I mean, nobody knows what that exact ingredient is or what they do. But so that is a bit difficult, the whole IP thing in food, because if you have the label and you see the ingredients, it's not that difficult to try and mimic it again. But yeah, so that is a difficult thing to handle.
And I think a last one is from a student that is doing trials on organic fertilizer, and they're struggling with market linkages or to convert them into positive results with sales. If anyone has any advice for them. I think a few things have been mentioned, but it would be good just as a closing note, just encouragement for anyone that's got the idea but are struggling to turn that into sales or profit.
Maybe on the fertilizer market or the agricultural supply market, as you know, it's a very competitive market. So I would always propose to a student to do a very thorough scoping of what is out there, what is selling. On the organic market, of course, and the biodynamic type of markets, there are a lot of products, not all being very well tested as well. So I think do your homework, talk to somebody. And this is, again, a huge advantage. We've got specialists in microbiology. We've got specialists. I'm thinking about Sporotech, a company in the university that deals with the assessing, the microbial status of soil, for instance. So get your product tested by the university. They'll give you a huge discount if you test your product, for instance, with these labs. You have a lot of networks in the university to go very far by actually testing and assessing what you are busy with, and do a very, very thorough market research and scoping on where your product should be actually positioned before you go out there.
Martha, if I may, I have one question for Antoine. I'm burning to ask. May I ask it? Antoine, through the whole food process that you went through, many a time upscaling from kitchen scale to production scale, is sometimes difficult. But I would just want to ask you, through your whole process from farmers market to producing now, a lot of product, what was your biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
Sure, thanks for the question. I'm not sure I can answer it. Yeah, I'll need to sit maybe with a glass of wine or something. But yeah, I talked a bit about the funding, talked a bit about the struggles with retailers. The production side has been challenging as well, but I think it's where kind of my passion lies. So for me, I have seen it maybe in a lot more kind of positive sense. But yes, we've done kitchen trials on a certain product, and then when we try and scale it up, it comes out completely different. So and then trying to figure out why that is. But that's been kind of the fun part for me. The new product development, or the development part has been the fun part. Open invitation if any of you want to come and visit our factory. Please, you're welcome to. We're based in Paarl. We can happily show you around. Yeah, I guess like I said, it's been a journey. Obviously when we started out, I think I said to my buddy, we did maybe 1,000 jars this one month, and it was really, what a breakthrough month. And now we are at a totally different scale. So I guess still, very small in the bigger schemes of things. Peanut butter is kind of like a R1 billion, category in South Africa, and we're not even, 5% of that or whatever. So 1%, I guess. Yeah, we're still humbly, soldiering on, and we have still got a lot to learn. But yeah, what we have, we're very proud of, and happy to show you.
Thank you guys so much for your time and for all your insights and your inputs in answering all the questions. Unfortunately, we've obviously run out of time, and I know there's a few questions that have being there and open. So for anyone who still has a question, I think especially the one about mentorship and stuff, please feel free to drop us an email on the emails provided and we'll redirect it to someone that can get to it. Otherwise, this is also part of, it's the second of the 3-part webinars. So another one will be on Friday at 1 o'clock. And if you still have some more burning questions, with regards to entrepreneurship within the SU context, please send them on there. Please join in for that webinar and also bring your questions along. We'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Maricel. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Antoine. And to everyone that's watching, thank you for putting out your lunch hour. And we hope this was helpful and insightful. Have a great afternoon. Yeah, cool. Alrighty, have a great afternoon.